You may think that soldiers live a tough life. Wait till you hear about pirates. These folks would travel for months on wooden ships. And let me tell you, these vessels were no Titanics, meaning no gourmet dining whatsoever. Canned food was introduced in the 19th century, but before that, the pirate diet wasn't just disgusting, it was a battle for survival. So, what exactly did they eat on those long, brutal voyages? Let's hop aboard a pirate ship to find out. Chapter 1. Welcome to the galley, if you can call it that. Ahoy, traveler! Welcome to the heart of the pirate ship, the galley. I hope you didn't expect a Gordon Ramsay's kitchen situation here, because this place is more like a floating dumpster. Think of the Pirates of the Caribbean scene where Jack Sparrow's eating a rotten apple, and you're halfway there. The galley, or the kitchen of a pirate ship, was a cramped, dark space reeking of moldy wood, rotting fish, and the stench of unwashed bodies. It was also called the parallel kitchen and was located usually at the back, under the deck. The pirates would gather there for socializing and planning more than actual cooking. Inside the galley, there would be a rusted iron stove if you were lucky, but most of the time it was just a metal box filled with sand to hold a small fire. The pots and pans were crusted with layers of old food and grime. Pirates weren't exactly known for their hygiene, so you can bet the cook, who was often the least popular crew member, wasn't scrubbing anything clean. Chapter 2. No fires allowed meant no cooking. Now that we've seen the filthy kitchen situation, how was the cooking? It was non-existent. Why? Because one spark could turn the whole ship into a floating bonfire. So what did pirates eat? Well, there's cold, soggy, salt-cured meat or rock-solid biscuits on the menu. I'll talk about the rock-solid biscuits later in the video. The metal box filled with sand, called a fire hearth, was the pirate version of a stove. Sand acted as insulation, preventing the ship's wooden deck from catching fire. A small fire could be lit on top to cook food, but it was risky and rarely used. Most meals were eaten cold to avoid disaster. And without any sort of refrigeration, fresh food was only a dream. In 1588, the Spanish Armada ship San Salvador exploded due to a gunpowder fire, killing hundreds. So the pirates weren't taking any chances. Even the lantern use was kept minimum, and smoking was outright banned. The risk was too high. So pirates ate whatever wouldn't spoil, or at least whatever they could stomach. Chapter 3. Rotten meat. A feast for the brave. So when there was no option of keeping food cold, the meat was preserved by salting or drying, but even that didn't always work. Salted beef and pork were staples for the pirates, but after weeks at sea, the meat would often rot, turning green and slimy. It would get infested with maggots, but the pirates would have been delighted as maggots meant extra protein. The smell alone could knock you out, but hunger was a powerful motivator. Sometimes the meat was so rancid it had to be soaked in seawater to make it somewhat edible. Most of the time, it was a gamble. Eat the rotting meat or starve. It's no wonder scurvy and food poisoning were rampant. Chapter 4. Ship's Biscuits. Remember I told you about a rock-solid biscuit? It was called hardtack or ship's biscuits. It was a cracker made from flour, water, and salt, baked to stiff perfection, which was designed to last for months. They were stored in barrels and biscuit bags made by prisoners in unventilated conditions, which led to infestation quickly. Pirates would often tap their biscuits to shake out weevils and other critters that had made the biscuits their home. If the biscuits were too hard to chew, they dunked them in water, beer, or rum to soften them up. But even then, it was like eating soggy cardboard. Hardtack was a staple because it didn't spoil, but it was also a source of misery. Broken teeth were a common complaint, and the lack of nutrients contributed to malnutrition. These biscuits were so durable that some survived shipwrecks and are still intact in museums today. Chapter 5. Drinking water, or swamp juice? Fresh water was a precious commodity on pirate ships surrounded by endless oceans, but it didn't stay fresh for long. Stored in wooden barrels, the water was rationed and would quickly turn stagnant. And stagnant water is perfect for mold and algae growth. Pirates called it swamp juice for a reason. It was often green, slimy, and smelled like rotten eggs. To mask the taste, they'd mix it with beer, wine, or rum, which also helped kill some of the bacteria. But even alcohol couldn't save the worst barrels, which sometimes contained pests and contaminants. Dehydration was a constant threat, so pirates had no choice but to drink it. It's no wonder dysentery and other waterborne diseases were common. Enjoying the ride so far? There's more shocking stuff coming up next, but before that, press the like button and subscribe. It really does me a favor to reach more curious people like you. Thanks. Now let's continue. Chapter 6: Rum and Ale, the Lifeline. After looking at the not-so-great water situation, the remaining options were just alcohol. Rum and ale were actually safer to drink than water, which often turned foul. Pirates relied on alcohol to stay hydrated, boost morale, and even numb the pain of their harsh lives. It was stored in barrels, and for personal use, they would often store smaller quantities in leather pouches or flasks hooked on their belts or in their pockets. The British Navy famously issued a daily rum ration, and pirates adopted the practice. But it wasn't all partying. Alcohol was also used to sterilize wounds and as a bargaining tool. However, too much rum often led to drunken brawls due to mutiny, which was a rebellion against the captain by the pirates on board. Chapter 7: No fruits, no veggies, hello scurvy. Remember the moment when Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean is constantly munching on apples? That's because he's battling a condition called scurvy. Pirates rarely had access to fresh fruits or vegetables, and it showed. Scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C, was the scourge of the seas. Symptoms included rotting gums, loose teeth, fatigue, and even death. Pirates didn't understand the science, but they knew fresh citrus helped. When they raided ships, lemons, limes, and oranges were prized loot. However, these were often in short supply. By the 18th century, the British Navy began issuing lemon juice to prevent scurvy, but pirates weren't so lucky. For them, scurvy was just another hazard of the job. Chapter 8: Rats, the other crew members. Other than men, there were tons of rats on board too, making them almost part of the crew. These little critters scampered around like they owned the place, nibbling on whatever they could find, from moldy bread to the last bit of cheese. Since fresh food spoiled quickly and storage was a joke, rats thrived on the rotting, moldy remains. Pirates often woke up to find their biscuits half-eaten by these menaces. But oh well, what could they even do? Sometimes when the food ran out, desperate times called for desperate measures. Some pirates actually ate the rats. It wasn't a delicacy, but when you're starving, you stop asking questions. Chapter 9: Catching dinner from the sea. When supplies ran low, pirates also turned to the ocean pantry for their next meal. Fishing wasn't a common practice, as they were usually constantly moving, and fishing was considered time-consuming with limited results. But when they were anchored, the crew would use nets, lines, and even harpoons to catch fish, sharks, and sea turtles. Seabirds were also caught, though catching them required skill and a lot of patience. Freshwater seafood was a rare treat, which provided much-needed nutrients and variety. Sharks were oily and tough, but it was a prized catch. I mean, considering other food options being moldy meat and rats. Turtles were considered a delicacy too, and would be roasted in that hearth situation when fire was allowed. But fishing wasn't always successful, and pirates had to get creative, sometimes even eating barnacles scraped off the ship's hull. Chapter 10: Desperate meals, boiled boots, and worse. Just how far can one go to attain food, you ask? Let me tell you. When food supplies ran out, pirates resorted to unthinkable measures. Oiled leather, like boots or belts, was a last-ditch effort to stave off starvation. That's right, folks, the leather would be softened in water and chewed for hours, though it provided no real nutrition. Sailors also ate sawdust, rope, and even candle wax in desperation. There are even documented instances of pirates resorting to cannibalism in extremely dire situations like shipwrecks or very long voyages. It was sometimes considered a custom of the sea to survive by eating the bodies of those who died first. Yikes! Chapter 11: Raiding for fresh supplies. We can't forget that these people are pirates after all, and raiding was basically their job. It was like a pirate's shopping trip. So when supplies ran low, they'd attack merchant ships or coastal towns and villages, targeting barrels of flour, salted meat, and if they were lucky, fresh fruits and vegetables. Pirates also stole livestock, like chicken or pigs, which they'd butcher on deck. These raids were risky, but essential for survival. Chapter 12: The Stench of a Pirate Ship. If you stepped aboard, you'd smell it before you even got close. Why? Let's see. There's rotting meat, moldy hardtack, stagnant water barrels, unwashed crewmates, and the ever-present rats. So you can just imagine the stench there was on board. The ship was a floating cesspool, where the smell would cling to everything, and I guess these people were used to it. Nobody would bother to clean the mess, and it would all bake under the hot sun. Even the ocean breeze couldn't save it. So tell me, would you have survived a day on a pirate ship? I know I wouldn't. I hope you enjoyed the video. Share the video with your friends. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.